all those experiences are just superficial, just arising through causes and conditions, just like how rainbows appear in the sky. There is a shape and color. And then in your perception, this make you recollect the word flower, the idea of a flower. We don't just take it as form is just an experience we have, right? We normally take outside there is something which I am experiencing. It is not existing as an inherent entity outside. Certain arrangements outside we perceive as a flaw. Irritable situations or pleasant situations or things that we get attached to or people whom we hate or people whom we are craving for. All that if we take, do they really exist that way outside? See into that. Are they existing by itself? So we have reached up to this point at Rajgir. On the Vulture Peak Mountain, Buddha was sitting, and here Buddha was into kind of a deep meditation, in that profound illumination where he knows all the phenomena as it is. So he was just in that meditation. And Avalokiteśvara was also meditating upon the Prajñāpāramitā. He was meditating and he was seeing that all the five skandhas are empty. So he is seeing the five skandhas and he is also seeing how they are empty. And we will get to what it means today. And at that time, under the power of Buddha, so because of being inspired by Buddha, Shariputra asked this question to Avalokiteśvara: how would a noble son of a family, basically, here Shariputra is asking, how would somebody who wants to make that Buddha nature within flourish and one wants to become the Buddha train in this path? Till that point we reach, and we also saw that usually Shariputra would not have this question because Shariputra usually is known as the Shravaka disciple who just wants to have the individual liberation. Shariputra wants to attain individual liberation and want to end the cycles of birth and death, and not really looking at how to become like a perfect Buddha. He only wants to break the cycle of birth and death. But here, under the inspiration of Buddha, in that setting, when Buddha himself is into that profound illumination, and Avalokiteśvara is also meditating there on Prajñāpāramitā, and the Buddha's intention makes that question arise in Shariputra, that how will one train in this path? Okay? And in the last session, we have looked at how what kind of knowledge which Shariputra has, or what kind of realization which Shariputra has, which most of us even may not have, even though we also aspire to be like Buddhas. Okay, we may not have the kind of realization which Shariputra has, and we just went through that fundamentally about looking at the five skandhas and seeing that none of these five skandhas is truly me. There is no I or me which is permanently there, which is always there. There is no such I at all. It's just the flow of experiences, one after other, moment by moment, different experiences come and go. These different experiences can be categorized into the five buckets, which are the five aggregates, which are form, feeling, and perception, and various mental formations and cognitions. So there are moment by moment various cognitions arise, moment by moment we see various forms. With every form we give rise to different, we also end up having different feelings of niceness or bad, basically pain or pleasure, happiness or suffering. And we give rise to different perceptions about whatever we see, mental ideas about whatever we see. We also give rise to various mental reactions about whatever we see. So these are the five skandhas: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and cognition. So all of these are just coming moment by moment and they are vanishing. And when we look at that, none of that becomes our real identity or anything like that. And when we look for, is there a me? Is there a true identity of me in any of my experiences? We say no, because they are all just going. And is there an identity of me outside of that? We see that even that is not there. So we kind of discussed through this last week. Okay. So now we shall see how Avalokiteśvara respond to this. Eva mukte arya avalokiteśvaro bodhisattvo mahasattvaha ayushmandam shariputramedavojat. Thus addressed, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteśvara said this to Venerable Shariputra. Ya kaschit Shariputra Kulaputro va Kuladuhita va asyam Gambhirayam Prajñāpāramitājam Charyam Chartugamaha Tenaivam Vyavalokidavyam. O Shariputra, a son or daughter of the noble lineage, or whosoever wish to practice the profound transcendental perfection of wisdom, should thoroughly see in this way. Here something is worth noting on a side point is that when Shariputra was asking the question, he asked, Ya kaschit kulaputro gambhirayam prajñāpāramitājam charyam chartugamaha katam shikshitavyam. Kulaputra. How should a son of noble lineage train? So this is what Shariputra was asking. Avalokiteśvara says, Ya kaschit Shariputra kulaputro va kuladuhita va asyam. So while answering, he says that a son or a daughter of the noble lineage, whosoever wishes to practice, should train this way. Okay. So Avalokiteśvara is making it clear that it's not limited to sons alone, sons and daughters, or anybody can train. Okay. So in the Shravaka path, it is generally considered that because it's a path of renunciation, of living on alms and all that at Buddha's time, it was considered that men can do it better. For women, it was difficult to go for alms and all that and to live that kind of a lifestyle in those days. But when it comes to Mahayana, it is not really about that outer discipline of total renunciation. It's more about inner understanding. And when it comes to Mahayana, when it's about the inner understanding and inner transformation, there is no such difference at all. So when Avalokiteśvara talks that, okay, there is no such difference. It is not only that the sons of noble family you can train, sons and daughters or anybody can train. This is the way to train. So he is gender neutral on that. Okay. So how should one train? Should thoroughly see in this way. So how? Panjaskandhamstamscha svabhāva shunyam sabanupashyati sma. Clearly perceive the five skandhas as empty of inherent existence. So here Shariputra is saying that. No, Avalokiteśvara is saying that one should see in this way. It's not that one should imagine in this way. Okay. He's not saying that one should think in this way. He's saying that one should see in this way. Okay, that's very important. It's not about imagining or believing or thinking. Okay, it's about seeing that the five skandhas are empty of inherent existence. So bhava shunya. Svabhāva means bhava means existence. Svabhāva means existing by itself, inherent existence. So we have this different experience. Even Shariputra has seen that, okay, whatever on experience is just different forms, feelings, perceptions, formations and cognitions. Each of this just come and go moment by moment. So see them and see into that. Are they existing by itself? So develop an insight by looking deeply into it. So don't just imagine that, oh, Buddha said this is supposed to be empty, so this must be empty. This is like try to observe phenomena and try to see, do they truly exist separately by itself? Okay. So one should see that it doesn't exist that way. It is like empty of inherent existence. Inherent existence means existing by itself. It has its own identity, its own existence, and that is not there. Because, as we will see later, these are all, whatever we experience, that experience arises through causes and conditions. Whatever we experience, they all arise through causes and conditions. And because they are arising through causes and conditions, they are not existing by itself. Okay? So if cause is gone, it is gone. So nothing can exist by itself. If a cause or a condition is changed, the experience will change. Okay? So even momentarily. So in the Svabhāva path, when Shariputra earlier realized, it's like momentarily different things come into existence. And at that time, they are existing by itself. But now Avalokiteśvara is saying that if you deeply look, even for that moment, it is not existing by itself because they rely on causes and conditions and parts and components and all that. So they are not existing by itself. So we shall go deeply into that now, but this is a generic statement. In the approach, he is saying that all our experiences, which is basically the five skandhas, the five aggregates, cover all our experiences. And in that all experiences, we should see, means we should attend to the experiences and see that to be empty. Now, when we say the five skandhas, see them to be empty, it doesn't mean see that nothing is there. It doesn't mean that, oh, there is no experience to me. So it is not that. Okay? So seeing the five skandhas to be empty means we are seeing the experience, and when we look deeply into it, we see that, oh, all this, whatever we are experiencing, they are just superficial. They just appear but lack an essence. So it's not that the appearance itself is not there. He is not saying that make them empty. Avalokiteśvara is not saying that whatever experiences come, demolish them. Avalokiteśvara is not saying that whatever experiences arise, kill them or somehow dissolve them. Okay? He's saying, look into that and see that all those experiences are just superficial, just arising through causes and conditions, just like how rainbows appear in the sky. Right? You can't hold on to a rainbow. There is no essence to the rainbow. It doesn't exist by itself. Through causes and conditions, you see a rainbow. Okay? And there is some question here. Is it like thin slicing into our experience and making a different perception about that experience? Not exactly. So we'll go into deeply. It's not about, it's like look into the experience and trying to understand it more deeply. So experiences are not vanishing. Experiences are there. Buddha is not denying experiences. When we say empty, it doesn't mean that there are absolutely no experience. Experiences are there. We are experiencing different things. Right? But the way we look at experience, it doesn't exist that way. We shall reach there now. Okay? Rūpaṃ śūnyatā śūnyata eva rūpaṃ rūpāna prathak śūnyatā śūnyatājāna prathak rūpaṃ. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. So now we will focus on just there are four parts to this now. So we will focus on the first part, which is form is empty. We shall come to that. So when you say form is empty, so earlier spoke about four types of Prajñāpāramitas. So let's just mention that once again before we move forward. So there are four types of Prajñāpāramitā, wisdom perfections, which are being addressed here. One is Prajñāpāramitā of the ground, and then the Prajñāpāramitā of result, then there is Prajñāpāramitā of path, and then there is the scriptural Prajñāpāramitā. So Prajñāpāramitā of the ground or the natural Prajñāpāramitā, that is what we are now into. What it means is that reality as it is, what is that? The wisdom about that. Okay? So, for example, I have this conch shell. What is the color of it? It is white. White, right? So this is white, is just its nature. Okay. Now assume somebody has jaundice. Okay. And somebody has jaundice would see this as a little bit yellow. At least that's how it is said. I didn't have jaundice, so I haven't seen it that way. But people say if you have jaundice, you'll see it as yellow. You are experiencing it as yellow. Okay. But reality is that no, it is not yellow, it is white. Okay. So the fact that it is white, that is the natural state, the wisdom about the natural state, which you are not experiencing now, which somebody can tell you. So assume if you have jaundice, then somebody can tell you that no, you're seeing yellow, but it is not yellow, it is actually white. And before getting jaundice, you would have seen. So in this case, it's little easier because before getting jaundice, you would have seen it. So you already know it's white. So if you think now the conch has changed into yellow, that is not the case. Conch is still white. It's your experience which has changed to yellow, right? So now this is natural wisdom. Now the wisdom of the result means once you purify the disease, purify your obscuration, then you will experience this as white again. Okay? So currently you experience as yellow, but its reality is white. So the reality is white is the natural wisdom. And once you purify, you will experience this as white is the wisdom of result. Okay? Now, the process of purifying is the wisdom of path. How do you remove jaundice or how you treat jaundice so that you'll come back and see this as white? So there is a process which you go through which you come to the result. So it's already white, but you are not experiencing it as white. And you have to, so there is a discordance here, right? You're not experiencing reality as it is. And now how to come to experiencing reality as it is. So experiencing reality as it is the result, and bridging the gap from your mistaken experience to reality as it is. That is the path. And the fourth is the scriptural wisdom is basically the explanation or all the teachings about how one can follow the path, or explaining all these different wisdom so that one comes to this. Okay. So all this text which you are studying is like a scriptural Prajñāpāramitā. But now what we are going to see, the form is empty. This is the nature. We are not seeing that way now. We'll understand now. In our experience, we take form to be not empty, but we will see that that is not the reality. Form is empty. Okay? And then there is path of how to come and see that. And then there is a result of actually seeing form to be empty. Okay? That will gradually come. So to give an example now, I have a flower here. So this is a flower. So you all see a form, right? What do you experience here?
An yellow flower.
Yellow color, yellow flower. Yeah. So there is a shape and color, right? And this shape and color in your perception. So the form experience which you have is a shape and color. And then in your perception, this make you recollect the word flower. Not just the word, the idea of a flower. Okay? And also, this might be pleasing to you. And so there is a feeling, even though it's mild, because this is not so greatly pleasing. So there is a mild feeling of happiness there, right? So there is a feeling of happiness or the positive kind of feeling. And there is the perception of a flower and just seeing this. Often we do not even see this. Sariputra says that, but we do not even see this, right? On seeing this, we normally just say this is flower.
No,
right?
I think we go back and remember. We go back and recollect the flower and the plant. That is how the perception works.
That is the perception part. So
Perception
basically,
part.
from all our experiences, oh, this also is a flower comes into our mind. Having seen this, later if I show this, this is also a flower. This comes to mind, right? Because of our past experiences. And if I show this, you just think, a little bit while before I showed this, right? Even though these are two different flowers, right? So the perception comes to, this I know. And there is a name to it. In our ordinary experience, we do not distinguish all these steps. Just seeing this, we take, this is flower, right? We just take this is flower. Yeah, but we do not analyze all that ordinarily. But then Buddha teaches you should analyze that. And then you see that, oh, this is just a form and color. What the eye sees is only a form and color. And then internally we have a feeling, and internally we have a perception. And the perception is based on all that recollection. We say this is a flower. Okay, now Shariputra understands this well, even if we do not. He knows that there is a form and there is a perception and there is a feeling, and then there are various reactional thoughts looking deeply into that or emotionalizing it about, and the cognition of it and all those kind of stuff come, right? But now we are going little more deeply to see, does this form itself exist? The form of this shape and this something which is objectively out there, which you see, does it really exist?
No, it doesn't.
For this moment, it is existing.
It doesn't.
In the moment it seems like existing. That's what our normal wisdom is, right? But is it in our mind or outside is what we are going to see. So here, I just pull out a petal. So you might feel a little bit pain that I'm destroying a flower. Okay, sorry for that. But I am pulling out a petal. Okay, what is this?
That's a petal.
This is a petal. And what is this?
The rest of the flower.
This is the flower, right? You might just call it a flower even now, right? But now I pull out one more petal. This is petal, this is flower or rest of flower. I pull out one more petal, flower and this is rest of flower. And now this is also gone, right? So where is the flower?
So destroyed.
Yeah, so
You
conventional
pulled out the flower.
What is that?
You pulled out the flower into bits.
Yeah. So you're all feeling pain that I destroyed a flower, right? Okay. And the conventional wisdom says that there was a flower which I just destroyed, right?
Yes.
But I didn't destroy anything. Everything is here. All pieces are here.
No, but not in the original form.
Yeah. But what was that extra thing there in the flower which I destroyed?
It got destroyed. Yes.
Yeah.
That was the form.
Is an experience which we have, but behind the form is our experience, right? But behind the form, was there an entity? So we normally think there was an entity flower, this thing, an entity flower which I am perceiving. We don't just take it as form is just an experience we have, right? We normally take there is outside, there is something which I am experiencing, right? Now that thing I have pulled out into pieces. So all that entity which was outside there is still in my hand, but you don't see the flower and you claim I've destroyed the flower. So actually, where was the flower? So because all that entity is still in my hand, right? It had 5 petals and all the 5 petals are still there. So earlier, when the 5 petals were arranged like this, it was called a flower. So in your perception, a flower formed, right? And the form also, you called it a flower. So you thought there is something out there which is a flower. But then when it is in this way, just petals, there is no flower. There is no entity which I destroyed. Some arrangement I destroyed.
Yes.
So an assemblage, some arrangement which gave rise to the appearance of flower is destroyed. So this was so pleasing and this is not so pleasing, right? So what we experience is so quite different between this and this. Even though entity-wise, if you collect all the pieces, the mass of it and whatever you take, it's all the same, right? But certain arrangement had certain experience to us, and when that arrangement has just been changed, that same experience doesn't remain there. This is somewhat what it means that the flower is empty. Basically, we normally think there is something out there, but where was the flower?
Yes, in the
Okay, I didn't go there. Where was the flower? So our arrangement had no entity, right? It was just petals only.
It's the perception of the flower which you're holding in your hand.
Yeah. But even the experienced flower, did that flower exist
It was
outside?
a mental creation in my mind that
Yes,
you're
yes,
holding
yes.
the flower.
Yes. So on certain arrangement, we have the
We get
experience
the-
that,
as a
one is
flower.
perception of flower, another is even the experience of form of a flower. When certain arrangement is done, we experience it as something special. There is a special feeling to it, and there is a special perception about it, right? So that is how we form the flower. So in reality, it is just this and this are no different, right? So, but I cannot say absolutely there is no flower at all. Okay, this is not a justification for destroying of the flowers, because even though truly no flower exists, when I teared it apart, you felt bad, right? So something which was functioning as a flower, right? Even though there is no reality to the flower, there is no entity-wise inherently existing flower, the arrangement meant something different to you, which I destroyed.
It gave the appearance of a
Yes.
flower.
So that appearance was especially beautiful to you, and that I destroyed, right?
Yes.
Even though truly no flower existed outside.
What is, you mentioned that there's a perception of seeing the flower, and there is an experience that we get from the flower, whatever it might be, mild, good feeling or bad feeling. So can you elaborate on what is the difference between perception and experience?
But these are all experience. Perception is a type of experience. The 5 skandha, we can say, are 5 types of experience. So one is, there is a form experience. So upon seeing this, I take it as something different than seeing this.
Understood.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a unique form to me. So this is an experience to me. I experience something outside of me.
Okay.
And this I cannot deny. Right?
Yeah.
Surely there was an experience. When I say flower is empty, I'm not saying that there was no experience of that. I'm not saying that your experience of this should be same as the experience of this. Okay. So that is what I meant by saying there was an experience of flower.
Understood.
Okay. Similarly, there is a perception of flower. Perception of flower means upon seeing this, I recollect an idea which I have in mind, which is of a flower, a category which is called flower. So upon seeing this as well as seeing this, I will just go to call it flower. But if you know the names of this differently, for example, this is a temple tree flower. So if you are so particular, then you will call this temple tree flower and oleander. Yeah, oleander flower and temple tree flower. So if we are so precise, we will have different names to it. If you are careless, not so interested in this category, we will just call it flower. So to somebody, this may be oleander flower, this is temple tree flower. But somebody else who is not keen about categorization of flower, it will just be flower. Okay?
Understood.
Yeah. So it depends on how deep we want to go and differentiate. But anyway, where we go and stop is in a perception, not in reality.
Understood.
Okay. In either case, we thought there is something out there which is a flower. Okay. But something out there is this, not this. Right? So whatever we experience as flower, it is not existing as an inherent entity outside. Certain arrangements outside we perceive as a flower. But this is not to say, this is a very careful point, we must understand, is that this is not to say that flower is totally meaningless. This is not to say that flower doesn't function. Okay? Flower, of course, functions. Upon seeing this form, it is more pleasant than seeing this, right?
Yeah.
So there is a functioning. This is something, it relates to us. But only thing is, even though it relates to us, this is not truly existing outside there. So an arrangement of petals to our mind appeared in a different form, which is unique. Yeah. And this is in human perception, this is special. For a cow, these two will not make much difference, right? Both are same.
Yeah.
If it is tasty, if this is tasty, this is also tasty, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing changed. Cow will not be sad that I teared it off. Maybe it's even easier. to it. So actually no difference. So it is to our mind, when we relate in certain way, this is special.
So it proves that it is like our perception, because even
Yes.
among species it is
Not only
differing.
perception, even the form experience, even the special form experience which we have, and even the special feeling which we get, nothing is due to as unique entity outside there. Okay, certain arrangement for our special condition appear as something special. For humans, this appears special. Similarly, when we see a lawn, right?
Yeah.
It's so pleasing to us, but for a cow, it is just food. Okay, so it differs. This seems quite simple, right? This
Yeah.
seems quite simple. Now the issue comes when we go a little more deeper, because this didn't challenge you so much, because there is something out there. Petals were there, right?
Yeah.
It is just that when the petals are arranged, the flower was not there. Flower is our idea. Flower is something our mind projected, or it's like it's in our mind. When some petals arrangement is shown, in our mind, the experience of a flower comes.
If a person has not formed a concept of a flower, that is, if he is seeing the flower for the first time, what does it mean for him?
Even then, if it seems special to him, he will start forming the concept of flower. Basically, this arrangement is more special than this arrangement, right? Then he will wonder about it. So that beginning of wondering, or that extra attention that he is paying to that, is the beginning of formation of conception, right? But if these two are of same interest to him, he will not bother. But if this is something special, then even if we don't know the name, we will want to name it. We will search for a name. But even if we don't get the name, mentally we have formed the idea. We don't know the name, but mentally that idea is there. Like what I said, I initially didn't remember the name to be oleander, right? But still, I knew this is different from this. So I've formed that idea already. But if somebody is not so keen about flowers, maybe it is just yellow flower, like white flower. And somebody is not even keen about that, it's just flower. That's it. After a while, you will not even remember which color it was. Okay? So now the tougher part or deeper part comes when I look into this itself, this petal itself. So you might think, only because petals are there, the flower formed based on that. So the arrangement of petals is what we call the flower. So petals were there outside. But now the point is that I can tear this apart, right? So it is half petal, right? I can tear this apart. I get something small. Now you may not be able to even see, right? But now I cannot go further physically. So we can do thought experiment instead. Okay? I split it apart. Okay? Somewhere it will not be beautiful at all. Okay, here basically there was a question that something existed which was not permanent. So that is not fully, that is true, but no, the existed part is not correct. The reason being, whatever existed is here now. I didn't destroy any entity outside. I only took it into parts. So the point is, other than parts, there is nothing to it. Right? So because sum total of parts has to be this, and all the parts are with me, and this is still different from this, I'm looking at what is different between the two. This is a good question, actually. We should understand this well. Okay? So all the parts is in this right hand I have, but this is seemingly different from the parts, right? And this is quite important. So that seemingly different part is what I call the entity flower. This I call it petal. I don't call it flower. Collection of petals. And this I call flower. So this is something different in meaning to me. Right? But what is different in meaning to me, does it exist outside? Because collection is still there. Right? So that is where we come to understand, this conventionally there is something called flower. which to me is a different relation than collection of petals, right? Something called flower is different than collection of petals at conventional level. But when I go deeply, I see that that flower has nothing other than the collection of petals. So the entity which I normally call flower is empty. It doesn't exist by itself. Okay? And where is the flower? When we look for where is the flower then, other than petals, what was special about it? Where was it special? In our projection. In our experience, conditionally we projected a flower. So again, you must remember that's not an excuse to say, so the flower can be destroyed, nothing was outside. No, conventionally, that is how we relate. So conventional also matters to us. So that is why we cannot just say that flower is not there, only petals are there. Okay. So conventional level, as an interdependent arising, there is a flower. Conditions assemble, petals assemble, and a human looking at it, there is a flower. Petals assembled, a cow looking at it, it is just petals again. It's food. Same food as the petals. Okay? But for human, it's a flower. But now when I chop the petals into pieces, right? You may think finally it will go down to some molecule and it will stop there. Right? Some kind of particle where it will stop. Will the particle have the properties of the flower?
No.
No, right?
No.
Is any particle yellow? Finally,
No.
when we chop, will the yellowness last till the final particle?
No.
No, yeah. So, not only the flower, that beautiful yellow color which was there with the flower, right? When I chop, finally, yellow also vanishes into thin air. There is no yellow anywhere. It's not that I take the yellow out of the flower and keep the yellow somewhere else. Right? Yellow just goes away. Because there is no yellow by itself. To this level, we analyze itself. There is some takeaway which we need to have. That takeaway is this. Normally, whatever we hold on to, even the nice objects or dirty objects like irritable objects, irritable situations or pleasant situations or things that we get attached to, right? Or people whom we hate or people whom we love, not really love, people whom we are craving for. Okay. So all that if we take, right? Do they really exist that way outside?
No.
No. Right? Just like how we looked at the flower. When conditions are assembled and there is a certain way when we look at it, they seem to exist in that way. For example, one might feel irritated in the first sight itself. It could be just that, okay, when we see somebody's face, we just remembered somebody else whom we saw
dislike.
Somebody whom we dislike long past. Upon seeing another person, immediately we remembered that face. Sometimes subconsciously, right? We just remembered another person. So we think, oh, this is dangerous person or this is an irritable person, right? Maybe this person himself may have nothing to do with that, right? So sometimes it comes like that. And how do we get into craving often? It's basically like
we mentally create.
Yeah, we mentally create an image which is different from reality. We take something to be existing out there. It could be about a person. So sometimes we overblow the good qualities and ignore the other qualities. And then we think, oh, this is like an ideal super something, right? Because we crave in that way. We just created an image like that, which may be different from reality. So there again, we are holding on to that, right? So all things which seemingly are outside there, about which we emotionalize, right? About which we either have craving or hatred or revulsion or irritation or whatever it may be, right? So those qualities do not exist there by itself. It's a product of our mind. Certain conditions from outside along with our mind working, we go towards that. So when somebody did something wrong, right, or somebody perceived me wrongly, often I also will form or we will form kind of an image about that person too, which is like, oh, I put him on the other side, him or her on the other side, right? This is difficult to work with kind of person. So then we do not see the working relations at all then, right? Because we have formed an idea. Once we form this idea, we hold on to this as reality, then we are not seeing causes and conditions deeply inside. So once we take this person to be what we think, then we don't. So often the problem comes because on both sides we do this, right? So about me, somebody forms some perception, and I form a perception back about that person based on how that person is reacting to me. So once there is a disconnect, both sides are disconnected and thinking that, oh, that person is hopeless, this person thinks this person is hopeless. So back and forth, it happens like that. But so the change is possible when we say that nobody is inherently like that. I am inherently not like what the other person is thinking me to be. Just in the same way, the other person is inherently not like what the person is holding or how I hold a view about that person. So when we recognize that, then we can look into what are the causes and conditions which make the person like that now. Because the person is not inherently there. It is conditions from within him, outside of him, all that together which forms that. Right? By seeing that, we can break it. Okay? Our perceptions are flawed. Others' perceptions are also flawed. And Buddha is talking about how we can go beyond all that flaws. But for a conventional working relation, what we need to do is that it could be any social context. So if it is a totally unwanted context, you can just ignore it and go away, right? But if it is a needed context, you have to be there in certain way so that they also acknowledge it in a positive way, right? So there, what we have to take is, since these are all interdependent, there are ways in which we can change it. Because even their perception is not an inherently existing entity. Their perception is not an inherently existing entity, right? The perception comes because of conditions. So we can look at what are the conditions and start changing the conditions. That's where it comes to. So when we go deeply, right, we can say that, okay, because everything is empty, everything is, nothing is inherently existing, everything is conditional. By knowing correct conditions, we can influence and change. So that makes us more powerful. Knowing emptiness makes us more powerful because we know where to change. Okay, it may not be that you have to change yourself. It could also be something else. And sometimes it may not be that you have to tell to the other person that you should change perception about me. Right? It may be totally something else. So we have to see which are the conditions, and then we can see where is a potentially influenceable condition. When we are totally bothered about everybody's perception and all that, right, we are kind of imprisoned by the perceptions of others. So at some point, we have to see that actually it doesn't matter so much, right? We can be at peace of mind irrespective of others' perception. But then in our social interaction, it matters. Where to actually benefit others, actually to interact with others, their perception matters. If we are okay inside, we are not affected by it, then we can start making working relationship. We can understand cause and effect properly, try to see where what perceptions are changeable, and work through that. There are so many tools about it. There are many layers to it. So the first thing is that here in this session, what you have to understand is that even their perceptions are empty. It need not affect us deeply. So we come to the peace of mind, we come to a more open expanse of our awareness when we recognize that fact, that this is all empty. We are not imprisoned by that, we are not bound by that, right? So we get to a more deeper and expansive freedom of mind. And from that perspective, then we can look and go into every detail and analyze. And there we have a lot of conventional tools which we can talk about. Okay, it's not only about understanding the empty aspect of it, it's also about understanding specific conventional relations. So there are two things I'm talking about here. One is when we analyze, see that nothing exists by itself. Now we are doing that analysis. That frees our mind. Second part is within that free space to understand how things form. So there are the specific relations of cause and effect. Okay. So one is ultimately nothing really is there. So there is more freedom. Another is to work in the conventional world, how to work with specific conventional aspects. And next session, we will go deeper into the same about form is emptiness. Okay. So think about this as an exercise. Also think about how this can be liberating or how this can be problematic both. So is this helping or is this making you run into problems? Contemplate on that later. Okay. So how everything which you see in the world, at least at the macro level, at the micro level, we haven't gone today, but at the macro level, the qualities which you see in objects, see in the external world, we have seen that, okay. Through one example, we have seen that they do not exist by itself out there. It is through conditions in which it comes. Okay. Try to reflect upon what it means and how that can apply as a change into our life. Okay. So with that, we will go to dedications. Anena punyena dosalvadarshita avapyana jetya cha dosha vidyusha jararuja mrityu mahormi sangulat samudhareyam bhavasagara jagat. Through this merit, by attaining omniscience and by conquering all faults and adversities, may I liberate all beings from the miserable waves of the ocean of existence of birth, aging, sickness, and death.